watching Where's Our Water, a CBS Austin town hall focused on Central Texas's water use and what is being done to protect our most precious resource. I'm meteorologist Avery Tomasco.
And I'm John Carlos Estrada. We are joined by Republican Texas Senator Charles Perry of Lubbock. He is the chair of the Water, Agriculture, and Rural Affairs Committee and has been a leading voice on water legislation.
We're also joined by Democratic State Representative Erin Zwiner of San Marcos. She is on the House Natural Resources Committee. Democratic State Representative Vicki Goodwin of Austin also here with us. Her district covers a portion of the Highland Lakes near Lake Travis.
Shannon Hamilton, Executive Director of the Central Texas Water Coalition, joins us as well. Brian McMath, Executive Administrator of the Texas Water Development Board, is also with us.
And with Austin Water, we have Director Shay Rawls-Rolson, Marisa Flores-Gonzalez here as well. Thank you all so much for being with us tonight for this important conversation. Let's start first. I'm going to show some graphics here of where we are with our water supply and what we're generally expecting as we get into the hottest months of the year. What you're looking at here is the Lake Travis current elevation, which sits at about 41% capacity, which is more than 30 feet below average for this time of the year and about 45 feet below full. The LCRA has these projections. I want to share these with you on what Lake Travis could look like by this fall under different conditions. This was made early in April. The worst case scenario shown here in that red color is extremely dry conditions, and it shows Lake Travis dropping by an additional 10 feet, the lowest level in about a decade. And these are the kind of conditions we had just a couple summers ago. Also, as we head deeper into the year, the El Nino Southern Oscillation may not help us out either. The good news is we have lost La Nina. It was declared dead about a month ago, but the conditions as we get deeper into this year, we're talking summer into our fall rainy season, they approach again a high likelihood of at least neutral conditions to La Nina conditions. And you may all remember that it's La Nina that played a huge role, especially in the last, I want to say 4 to 5 years of getting us into this massive deficit to begin with. With all of this in mind, I want to ask each of you one by one, in a couple of sentences, how dire do you think Texas's water situation is, be it on a local level or a statewide level? We'll start with you.
I represent a district with a lot of wells, and we have had homeowners struggle with not enough water in their wells, not able to meet their current needs, and having to truck water to their homes. So yeah, I think our water situation is absolutely dire right now.
I'd say on a statewide level, there's 14 out of 16 planning groups that do not have an answer for their predicted supply. That's scattered out from 2050 to 70 range. We're 25 years behind in developing supply for the state. We can fix this, but I think people underestimate the length of time it takes to address it. So everything in water is 20 years, and we need water today in some areas, and we're going to continue to need more water every day that Texans show up here in our doorstep. So no time like now to start, but we are behind. So Texas can fix it. It has the wealth to do it, and most importantly, it has undeveloped water supplies to fix it with, which puts us in a pretty good spot. It's just a commitment to doing it. But I would say we're not dire today. It depends on where you're at. If you're a well owner that well went down 100 feet, you're in dire shape, right? But we can triage ourselves to get there to where the new supply can come online. So I'm not doom and gloom, but I think we're wise to recognize the fact that we have to start today.
Time is against us.
Time is against us.
That's correct.
I would say that if we don't do anything, it's dire. We still, according to the state demographer, have 1,500 people a day moving to Texas. And so with that growth, we certainly need to address where we're going to bring the water from. We've seen some really great projects, and my focus has been on water conservation. The new projects are very lengthy and very expensive. Water conservation is something we can do right now.
Brian?
Great question. So I would like to point out how remarkable it is on how serious everyone is taking water issues here and now. I think the legislature has made it a very significant issue for this session. A lot of serious consideration on providing the resources needed to address needs throughout the state. And I'm very excited about what is being considered currently. Got about 7 weeks to go. I'm very hopeful for what comes across the finish line, and then the Water Development Board can put those resources to good use to address needs throughout the state.
Yeah, critical time in the ledge.
Absolutely.
Onward.
And we are here to support the Ledge, every effort that they are doing, and we appreciate to move our water needs forward. But in reality, for Central Texas, the water coming into the Highland Lakes is at an all-time low. And our inflows are not at a sustainable level compared to the growth that we're experiencing. We have to buy time for Senator Perry to be able to bring us new water supply, but at this time, it's dire for our region, especially for those in Burnett and Llano and our upper regions. They're going to experience it first.
And for those unaware, the watershed that feeds the Highland Lakes, expansive, stretches way out into West Texas. So it's a large portion of Texas that needs the help, and if Mother Nature's not going to provide, we're probably going to have to start worrying about how we use the water and make sure it's conserved.
So in Austin Water, we serve over 1 million people in the Central Texas area, and we get 100% of our water supply from Lake Austin and Lake Travis, so from the Highland Lakes. So when we think about planning for the future, we need to plan for growth for water demands as our region grows, but we also need to bridge these times of drought. As you talked about, the current lake levels in Lake Travis and Buchanan, we're at about 48% of capacity now. And so we're thinking both about our short-term drought strategies as well as our long-term growth strategies. And we recently published an update to our Water Forward Plan, which is our 100-year water supply plan, which Marisa is the architect of.
And we'll be talking more about that in a little bit. Marisa.
And now that we're in the implementation phase of that Water Forward Plan, just like Senator Perry said, it's important for us to take action. We are in a serious situation, and we're taking steps to address that risk and to prepare our community to face this short-term drought as well as longer-term needs.
So let's shift focus now to talk about the Lower Colorado River Authority. They're the decision makers and gatekeepers, if you will, when it comes to our water supply. They serve over 1 million people in Central Texas. The LCRA's data shows one of the biggest water users in our area is landscape watering. Back in March, they entered stage 2 drought conditions, which in part limits outdoor watering to no more than once a week. We invited them to be part of this town hall, but they instead made themselves available for this interview. Here's part of it.
They're kicking in earlier this year than what they had done previously. So we actually have the ability to go into our stage 2 of our drought contingency plan well ahead of when we would have traditionally. It should allow us to have much less water going out of the system than what we would have had previously. One of the most important things is to understand what we can control and what we can't control. So there are certain elements of living in Central Texas, such as the heat, and the sunshine that we get in the summertime. It's one of the reasons why people want to move here, but it also gets really hot, and our evaporation rates can go really high in a hot, dry Texas summer. We also understand that it's an area of extremes, and in a month we can see the exact condition flip and go into a flood posture. So particularly for people that are new to the region, this kind of embracing the extremes and riding through the extremes is something that we really want to encourage people to lean into and to understand. When it comes to how we set our yards up, we can set ourselves up to save money and to use less water. And going forward, that's really going to be important for us here in Central Texas. And everybody has a role to play in terms of conservation. So we need to think more in terms of individual responsibility and the things that we can do on a day in, day out basis.
That's a great jumping off point. So who does the responsibility of conservation fall on? Individuals or the leaders in charge of our water? Shannon, let's start with you.
Everybody has to buy into conservation. It is not about the one person, it's about all of us together. We have got to realize that the new water supply that could be coming is 10 to 20 years away. Right now, we don't know. We can't predict when a rain bomb is coming, and that's what it's going to take to fill our lakes. It's hard to pray for devastation and flood, but everyone has to embrace conservation right now through your yards and landscapes. If you get a warning from your water provider that says you have a leak, call a plumber, because you probably do. But there's so many efforts that we could do, to including our yards, but other areas that people can conserve.
Want to hear from our lawmakers. Senator Perry?
Yeah, 70% of municipal use is to water your landscape, and that's honestly unacceptable.
It's a crazy number.
It's a crazy number, and just think if people could cut that in half. And I can tell you my front yard is AstroTurf and xeriscape beds. It looks great. It's got a little drip in it. We did it, and now everybody was wanting to do it. So, you know, we can start a trend here, but I can say the water plan we're working on, as has been said, it's going to take a while, right? There's a lot of moving parts to it. We have to triage, is what I'm calling it. But honestly, the new generation doesn't want to mow, doesn't want to fertilize, don't want to maintain. So we've got a window here to change a cultural and some of the thinking. The big yards that my generation wanted, the 3 acres of St. Augustine or wherever it was at, that's not what the kids of the day want to do. So I'm hoping development, incentivized development, we put some money towards that through impact fees. If people are coming up with innovative ways, i.e. rainwater harvester that sits under the ground now. It's not the big black tank. It's actually got a little pump, and it runs the irrigation system for new houses in development. So those are innovative ways that I think we can, long term, if a lot of people start on this wagon, we can actually change the paradigm that we're sitting in, where 48% in a reservoir isn't quite as concerning if we know that 70% of the water is now only going to be 35% of the use. So that's where we just got to change the cultural mindset here. There are statutory things we need to consider going forward, not this session. We're trying to get the plan funded, get the plan set up. But next session, we need to go into some of these restrictions that neighborhoods and cities alike have. You are required to have X in green. Well, we got to change that paradigm. You know, the sad truth is they depend on the revenue to pay for the infrastructure. The more you pump, so it's based on production. So we're going to have some hard conversations over the interim. What do we do to negate or allow development in communities to go to the zero state concept? Arizona got it years ago. They don't waste water. They don't treat water like it's an infinite supply. We got to get there.
As the Arizona weather starts trickling a little bit farther towards the east, we might as well follow the good examples being set.
Representative Goodwin, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely need homeowners to be conservative, to water their yards less, to put in drought-tolerant landscaping. And when we are in a drought and you can only water, or maybe you can't water, making sure that homeowners can't be penalized by their HOA fined if they don't have green grass. So we have what we call the brown grass bill coming up on the floor tomorrow to make sure that homeowners aren't penalized. I think it's also really important to know that we have purple water pipes throughout the city, and we met with the Texas Facilities Commission before session and asked them to hook up to that to water the landscaping at the Capitol. And they said that they would, and it would save about 45 million gallons of water a year.
Kind of a quick follow-up question on that note with both of our lawmakers here. You know, you could talk to anyone in Central Texas. Some of them don't care about their yard. Maybe others have put a lot of time, a lot of money into manicuring that perfect green St. Augustine on maybe a big half-acre, 1 acre lot. Is there any room to incentivize Central Texans to put in the money to then help their landscape use less water? Are there any incentives or maybe some rebates that could be offered for going towards xeriscape if somebody already has that big, beautiful green yard?
There's not today, but through development, there is opportunity to incentivize developers, existing landscape, or existing homeowners. I don't know of a state program that does that. I'm open to the conversation next session. We're just trying to, I mean, we're moving some big mountains right now in water. The conversation's there. It's at the right peak. It's at the right awareness. I don't want to throw something in like an HOA conversation, right, that requires you to be green, requires you to have all this much. If we throw that, that's the kind of stuff that blow up the legislature. It's just one of those political things. You try to pick your timing on it.
Representative Zwiener.
Yeah, I think incentives for individuals are something that's really important, but I think perhaps the more important area is making sure we're both using a carrot and stick approach with new development. You know, Hays County is expected to triple in population by 2070 to 700,000 people. That's a lot of new homes going in. And if you're a first-time home buyer, you don't have the capital to come in, rip out your St. Augustine grass and put in more water-efficient turf. So we need that to happen at the front end of development. And because of some of the changes the legislature has made with how cities grow and different dynamics, more and more of that development is being pushed into the counties, who have fewer tools to negotiate with developers to do those water conservation builds. So something I'm working on is trying to give my county, Hays County, as a bit of a pilot project, the opportunity to have water conservation standards with new development. And I think that's going to be critical. It is so much more affordable for everyone everybody if we do that on the front end, and it's a big way the legislature can help that culture shift happen.
Actually, can I weigh in?
You sure can.
So, you asked about rebates.
Yes.
LCRA offers rebates. City of Austin has some great rebates. Check with your water provider. It would be my recommendation for everyone that's watching today. We absolutely have rebates available that for xeriscaping, rainwater collection in some areas. Check with your water provider would be my recommendation.
Great notes. And on that note, I want to turn this next question to Shay and Marisa. How is Austin Water helping to promote conservation? Because if the water's not going to come from Mother Nature, the least we can do is cut in or cut out as much of that 70% that goes to irrigation as possible. That's a big chunk of water that could help stretch our resource through these long, extended drought periods. What is Austin Water helping to do to help motivate?
Well, communication is the key. So during the last drought of 2008 to 2016, we really leaned in on communication with our customers, and they responded. And our per capita water use dropped significantly over that time frame as our customers heard our messaging and responded and reduced their per capita water use. But we know that conservation is not something that Austin Water can achieve just by putting our resources and time into it. It's something that our customers have to believe in and own and do for themselves. So in the last several years, we've rolled out new smart meters, 258,000 smart meters to all of our customers, and that gives them near real-time information on the water they're using. And it also gives us a portal, a communications portal, where when the system sees their water use spiking, it sends them a message and says, you may have a leak. And we've gotten some really great stories of people finding those leaks right away, and we've saved millions and millions of gallons of water by those leaks being found almost immediately, rather than at the end of the month, 2 weeks later, you get your bill.
I'm curious, that was a huge success story during the drought of record 2008 to 2016. Huge success story to get our water usage on a citywide basis to drop as much as it did. What do you attribute that success to? And is that, do you think, repeatable as we get into a bigger population and perhaps even lower water supply?
I really attribute it to our customers, to the people who live in Austin, seeing the need for that. You can drive by Lake Travis and see how low it is, and that really makes it hit home for people. But of course, we've had many people move to Austin since that time who may not have come from areas that where water is as precious as it is here. And so, we need to continue to reach all of those people where they are. And we intend in the coming years to really double down on our messaging and our communication.
Marisa, anything to add?
As a part of our Water Forward plan, in addition to all of the outreach and education that we do on a day-to-day basis, we have plans to further the implementation of strategies to convert our landscapes to native landscapes. We are working on codes and ordinances to require that new single-family developments implement tools that will reduce their outdoor watering usage. So we do want it to start with that new development to build those conservation measures into single-family homes.
So we're going to turn our attention now to the 89th legislature. Governor Greg Abbott has named water a top priority as the start of this session began. Senator Perry, the governor has tasked you with overseeing a lot of these bills that have been proposed. Can you talk to us about Senate Bill 7 specifically?
Senate Bill 7 is the platform going forward to make sure 254 county of new water supply is developed. And I qualify. New water supply means it adds to the overall volume available for Texans to use. Previously, new water supply was one community needed it, another community had it, and they just moved it. That did not increase the overall volume. So we're developing 4 different options. You got marine desal, produced water desal, that's in the oil and gas industry, and you have brackish, and then you have some surface water that is available for development inside of Texas and outside of Texas. We have some options of hopefully 1 to 1.5 million acre feet if possible. We need 6 million acre feet between now and 2050 is kind of my window. If we're 75 to 80% in development of that, we're going to be okay by 50. But that's what Senate Bill 7 does, is outlines the parameters to go after this new development and make sure we're developing new water supply and not just depleting the existing one like we're currently doing. So that's what Senate Bill does. It just gives you the framework to put into place how to go about developing this new supply.
Almost entirely on the supply side, correct?
All supply side.
Okay.
Conservation is critical. And even if we had all the supply we need to be good stewards of it, right? But we're behind in supply. When companies come, they don't ask if your pipes leak. They don't ask if there's water in the reservoirs. They just ask, is there water available for me and my family? And they want to know that it's there going forward in our workers or employees. So Texas is a little behind the 8 ball, but the good news is we can get ahead of it with the commitment we're making this session.
Time's against us. I want to turn over to Brian now. The Senate Bill 7 would obviously largely impact the Texas Water Development Board. Can you help explain specifically how funds from the state reach the local projects that you oversee?
Sure. So the Texas Water Development Board has a variety of financial assistance programs that we can offer to communities throughout the state. Some are state funded, some are federally funded, some are a combination. But I've been dying to be asked the question, how much do you need?
How much do you need, Brian?
How much you got, right? That kind of underscores the vast need throughout the state. Senator Perry has been a leader for as long as I've been at the Water Development Board on water issues, and he's really taking the lead recently on securing necessary funding for those new water supplies, innovative supplies, kind of more traditional supplies. But what we do is we take the financial resources that the legislature appropriates. If it's appropriated into the water fund, then our board has the discretion to kind of allocate that into our various programs. But sometimes, and in the joint resolution that the senator has proposed, there would be some of those dollars dedicated again to the new water options. So really, we can use as much as we're given because communities throughout the state need as much help as they can get.
The limit does not exist, I suppose. And on that note, I want to ask you again, according to the most recent water plan, we need $80 billion with a B to address water infrastructure concerns in just the next 50 years. However, the plan does not say, or it says that we don't know where over half of that money is going to come from. So Brian, can you speak on this estimate? Just how big of a number that is, and is it big enough?
Yeah, it's a big number. That's from the last state water plan, the 2022 state water plan. We've got the regional plans in from the various regions now that will make up the next state water plan in 2027. And no surprise, that number will be even bigger. Fortunately, with the structure that the legislature is considering, a dedicated revenue stream of $1 billion a year into the Texas Water Fund, over time, that will allow us to make progress towards securing that water. We have the ability to sell bonds, so we can leverage funding from the state, so we can do a lot of good with the resources that they're considering giving us.
Shannon, do you have anything to add to that?
I agree. We need as much as we can get, and especially for our region. I mean, we are leaking every day in infrastructure. I mean, water is dollars as well. It's going to take dollars to fix the infrastructure, but it would help as areas are between 15 and 30% depletion in just infrastructure leaks. So we need new water supply, we need to repair our infrastructure, we need to make sure we have a sustainable future.
What are some things that we're considering to help with this gap that we're seeing with the board?
Well, you got marine desal, produced water, and brackish, and then surface water. That's your 4 new supplies. You've got leaking pipes, infrastructure. On a statewide average, we use 15 million acre-feet a year. We currently lose about 3% to leaky pipes in an annual basis. So it's not much in the big scheme of things. Engineers tell me that you'll never have under single digits in a pipe system. It's just engineeringly, there's always going to be a leak. At the same time, when you look at geographical where those leaks are, they're very concentrated in big numbers. So Harris County's 32 billion gallons a year.
Wow.
So in those contexts, it sounds big, it is, and we don't need to waste that water But I can tell you where we're at in our supply. We have to make supply a priority and catch the infrastructure. The infrastructure is a local issue, but the state needs to leverage to help because the numbers are too big. They were responsible for their pipes, and there's a lot of them that have collected money that wasn't put to those pipes. It's been used to fund cops and roads and stuff, not bad things, but it's been diverted. So we need to clean that up, and then we need to get our water loss data as a mandatory reporting, so that right now it's voluntary, so that you can't fix a problem if you don't recognize you have a problem, right? So there's some bills that are going to kind of force that issue up to hand. So it's a big number, and we need to start now, but supply has to be the first level of priority. This mirrors a lot of the transportation bill that we did for roads and bridges. The first 16 years is a split, and then the legislature every 10 years after that changes that split depending on where we're at in the system. So it's just a matter of commitment. It's really, this is one of the few things I tell people. I don't have a broken heart or a broken family attached to it. It's just actually a dedication of resources to address it. And we're big enough that we can do this. So I'm excited about what lies ahead. We're going to send a strong message when we leave this session that welcome in Texas. Those 1,600 people, 1,500 people a day can continue to come with the knowledge that Texas is big enough and has committed to fixing this issue.
Want to hear from our other lawmakers?
Yeah, I'm so grateful for Senator Perry's leadership on this issue, and we need this big investment in new water. I think the other piece that complements that is us being smarter about which water we use where. For example, there's a school that was built in Wimberley ISD that does not use a drop of groundwater to irrigate the property. Instead, they use air conditioning condensate and gray water from their sinks. And so some of the new water sources Senator Perry's talking about, like produced water from oil and gas, that might not be drinking water, but that might be the right water to irrigate certain crops. It might be the right water to cool data centers with. So we need to make sure we prioritize our drinking water for those human uses and are smart about using our other non-potable water sources in some of the spaces they can be used.
Sure.
Yeah, I agree. We need to be very creative with how we reuse our water. And I was told that it's very expensive to retrofit, but maybe going forward as we build new buildings and new homes, we can think more about how to reuse water so we're not using potable water in our toilets and things like that.
Right.
Well, Austin Water has its own plan. It's called the Water Forward, and it's a guide for the next 100 years. Shay and Marissa, talk about what goes into planning for a century.
A lot. It takes a lot of effort on the part of Austin Water, but also on the part of our citizen-appointed Water Forward Task Force and all of the community members who contribute to making this plan and to also making the plan a reality. We plan for growth and drought, and we plan for future droughts that could be worse than the droughts of the past. And we identify strategies that will help us to navigate whatever sort of uncertainty we'll face. We address risks and uncertainty to create water security for Austin in the future. We use an adaptive management process, and so in doing that, we're updating the plan as we go along, and we're learning and we're implementing all at the same time because it's important not to just plan, but also to implement and to take action. So we have 4 different pillars that are a part of this plan. We start with conservation, reducing our water use total. We implement reuse, and we make sure that we're using the right water for the right purpose and increasing the amount of reuse that's happening across the system in our purple pipe system, but also at the building scale by implementing on-site reuse and reusing things like AC condensate or rainwater harvesting or other local sources of water. And then we stretch our existing water supplies through strategies like storage, like using aquifer storage and recovery to take water from our existing water sources during times of plenty and storing that underground where it'll be safe from evaporation so that then we can access those sources of water during drought. And then we do look at additional supplies through strategies like brackish groundwater desalination to increase the amount of supply that's available to the city of Austin as we grow.
Fantastic answers. Thank you all. I, as a meteorologist, obviously am kind of a forward-facing figure to the concerns of many Central Texans. So we'll be planning this town hall. We reached out and said, We're going to be meeting with local leaders, representatives, Austin Water, the whole 9 yards. What are your concerns as we get into deeper drought, hopefully not for much longer, and more importantly, this booming population? So I want to take a few of these viewer questions and bring them straight to you. First was from Abby Goldman Brody on Facebook. She asked, why aren't there local and statewide mandates to install xeriscaped yards with native plants in every new build? We kind of touched on this earlier, but the floor is open for, especially for our lawmakers and maybe for Austin Water as well. Why aren't there mandates? How dire does the situation need to be for us to really start cracking down on new builds or maybe even existing homes on getting xeriscape and low water use landscaping?
So I floated the idea by some realtor friends of mine about saying, what if builders weren't allowed to use St. Augustine when they're building new homes? And it's harder to pass mandates than it is to offer incentives. And so my realtor friends were not real hopeful about passing a bill to say builders can't put in St. Augustine. They said they're already not doing that, maybe, in some places. But I think maybe looking at it through incentives would be easier in terms of a bill that you might pass in the legislature.
Politically, carrots and stick works better, but here's your best governor on local water use. If you raise the cost of water, they'll quit watering their yards, and that's not what you want, but the practicality of it is the new waters are going to be more expensive, and people are going to make that decision to not have those yards the way they like to keep them if we don't start having the conversation to do it with the proper balance, right? You know, most people don't know how much to water their yard. Most people water it every day. It needs it once a week. You know, just education, but carrot and stick. You know, Texas is a pretty independent lot. Most people that move here notice real quick that Texans are a pretty independent lot. And when you start trying to micromanage someone's front yard, you get a lot of pushback in a hurry. So I think we just have to find ways. New development is our prime opportunity to incentivize on the front end because it saves the homeowner so much money. Just maintenance, water, all those things, $300-400 a month if you're doing it right during the summer, right? So you're really going to see an evolution away from what the current practices are, but to force it from the state level down, compliance is an issue, enforcement's an issue, and the political fallout of that, both at the state and local level, is real.
You mentioned higher priced water is going to de-incentivize water in the yards, right? Hopefully there is a way, or maybe there will be addressed, to make sure that, you know, the average Joe who's not watering their yard, just using water to bathe their kids and, you know, cook dinner at night, is not getting penalized with higher cost of water as, you know, across the street, someone who's watering their yard.
Yeah, and I think that most water pricing in Austin Water probably be better to speak to. It's based on use.
Yep.
And there's a bid, you know, there's a tiered system, so that the guy that's just doing the bare minimums, just existing, they're never going to see those rate increases. But those guys that are 10,000 gallons a month to water a yard, they're going to get tagged. And I think they're already getting tagged in most cities when they do that. So
that's exactly right. So we have a what we call an incline block rate structure, and it's really geared toward making sure that water for the most essential uses is affordable.
Right.
So we are always balancing the cost of running Austin Water and delivering this vital resource to our customers with affordability for our customers. But in those higher tiers, it gets substantially more expensive. And so we just recently, every 5 to 7 years, we do a cost of service study where we look at what it takes to run the water utility, and then we redesign our rate structure to make sure that we're being responsive to meeting the needs of all of our customers and residents, as well as helping them see the value of conserving water.
And I think one of the things that we need to grasp is that HOAs need to be out of the water business. We need to allow our property owners to xeriscape when they choose to, when they want to use the drip system and watering. Today, HOAs have the authority in our county, because we're in a county over 1 million, that they can do that. So we have several bills. Representative Goodwin happens to have one of them, House Bill 1432, that would allow all property owners to xeriscape, use rainwater collection and water efficient irrigation. We need to get that bill heard and allow property owners to do that.
And on that note, I've at least seen that bill. It is one of the main complaints among my viewing audience. Why are HOAs making me water my grass? If we're in a water shortage, I don't care if my grass is green. I want to help conserve water in line with Austin Water and, you know, in general, just conserving water. So how much oversight or, I guess, jurisdiction does that take away from HOAs, your bill, should it pass?
I mean, really, it's already the intent. In state law, it says that an HOA can't ban a homeowner from installing native grass or xeriscaping. I think there have been some homeowners that put in xeriscaping and then the HOA said you can't do that. But the intent was there. It's just there's a loophole right now. So really what my bill does is close a loophole.
Yeah. A lot of happy viewers.
Yeah.
Hopefully if it passes.
A lot of happy viewers.
So this is another thing that we got a lot of. Misty Marie Vogson on Facebook said adding in data centers for AI uses a lot of water. So what are we doing to ensure that this sacred, precious resource that we have here is going to people and businesses who need it instead of powering more AI? Maybe Austin Water?
Well, I'll say that we serve a wide variety of different kinds of customers, and that is a part of the vibrant economy of the Austin, Texas area. Working with our customers to help them understand what their opportunities are to benchmark their water use and then conserve water, and then as several folks have talked about, use fit for purpose water. Can we use reclaimed water for some of those demands? And you know, as we see these data centers come in, we will apply those same principles to make sure that all of our customers are making good choices about how they use their water.
Do you have any data up to this point of, this is a very fresh boom, right? The AI industry. Do you have any initial data of how much that is starting to draw on the supply?
We did an initial evaluation, and it was, I think, less than a dozen right now, and a fraction of a % of our annual water use. So at this point, this is not an issue that we are currently grappling with, but we want to stay ahead of these new kinds of industries that may be coming into our service area to make sure we're prepared.
Is this something on the radar for the
2027 water plan, and we had this in our hearing, they are now going out and meeting with those AI centers that are coming in and talking to them. So in the next 27 water plan, it should have some basis for trying to enter those into the water planning process. We don't know what they use. They honestly don't know for sure because most of them are new. I would say that the bigger pull on that is energy, but 52% of the new generation we're talking about putting into the grid needs water either to cool it or for turbines to steam. So water is interrelated to energy, but those AI centers, we don't have a good footprint today to say they're going to need X number of acre feet of water. Now, we can predict they're going to need X number of gigawatts of power. So you can extrapolate and pull out the water needs in some of those issues. But the 27 water plan, in a hearing the other day, y'all were, as the Water Development Board is, they're already ahead of us. And they said, we're already going out and meeting with those guys to try to get some guideline as to what they're going to need going forward. So,
and how does this impact the Water Development Board, especially the AI boom?
It's a great question, and it is an emerging economic area for the state. Texas prides ourselves on being the Texas miracle and economic development friendly.
Everyone come to Texas.
Sure. But, you know, the Water Development Board, as the Senator mentioned, we provide support to the 16 regional water planning groups throughout the state, and ultimately we put all those plans together in the state water plan with kind of the growing needs of both energy and related water needs for these data centers. We're already proactively working with communities to identify potential data centers, estimate those water needs. Recently had a meeting with the Public Utility Commission. They potentially have some data that we could use to inform our estimates. And so always trying to look ahead. You mentioned earlier that the state water plan estimates an $80 billion need for 50 years. Well, we're also looking 50 years out. for available supplies, what needs we estimate being there, whether it's population, data centers, or other industrial needs, in trying to find water to bridge.
And I would say those are very responsible and savvy investor groups that are putting those together. So wherever they can use internal reuse of their water sources to cool, for potable, for other purposes, it's going to be built into those plants. They're on the ground in, right? They're on ground level. They're coming in, so they can design it to be extremely energy and water efficient. I was in a hearing with our committee the other day. I did not know, but homeowners have the opportunity to retrofit reuse in their homes today, and it was a pretty affordable conversation. So we're moving in the right direction as a cultural shift to what we need to be doing for water. We just need to kind of incentivize and encourage it along. But it was encouraging to hear homeowners can actually retrofit their house to do this reuse for yards. So most people don't even know that or would think that. Yeah. So there's things we can start doing.
We have new limitations on how much you can irrigate front and backyards. You can irrigate 50% front or back, and that's on the code side. But on the incentive side, we offer rebates. We offer help for setting your irrigation system, for understanding your water use. Similarly, in new developments, large developments are required to implement on-site water reuse, which is collecting air conditioning condensate and rainwater and reusing it for irrigation and to flush toilets. But similarly, we offer incentives to help make that more affordable for those developments. So when we implemented all of those requirements, there was concern about cost. There wasn't concern about need. Everyone understands the need to move into these more water efficient and fit for purpose programs.
Let's move on to another viewer question. This one is a bit more severe, we'll call it. Recently in Comal County, the Texas Water Company stopped 9 new home developments from happening, citing specifically Canyon Lake in Comal County is very, very low, all-time record lows. So they're citing that as a reason to basically say, no, you can't build here, not yet at least. Austin is obviously not doing that yet. We have, as mentioned, about 1,500 people to Texas every day. How long into this drought, or how bad does it have to be, or is it even possible that we would possibly get into that sort of a situation where Austin Water has to say, hey, we want you to move here, but maybe not now. Let's hold off because we don't have enough water.
So our intent is never to have to do that. We have both, as Marisa has talked about, our long-term plans, but also our short-term plans that are drought responsive. And so we have one of those is our indirect potable reuse plan, which would bring highly treated wastewater effluent from the South Austin Regional Wastewater Plant and store it in Lady Bird Lake, and then pick it up and treat it again at our Ulrich Drinking Water Treatment Plant for what's called indirect potable reuse. And so we have emergency drought plans such as that in order to bridge the drought that we're in now, to provide for the water needs of our community.
And we're also evaluating other potential emergency supply options. We need to have a contingency plan upon contingency plan to make sure that we don't reach that point. So we're looking at options to use Lake Walter E. Long as a water supply reservoir to take excess water from our existing run-of-river water rights and store that within Lake Long and use that water for drinking water purposes. We're also looking to a consultant to help us evaluate emergency direct potable reuse implementation as well. So that's our job, is to plan for situations that could be severe so that we have strategies in place to weather those situations.
I want to clarify, this was a question from Becky Stark on Facebook asking, why do they keep approving these new home developments, hundreds and hundreds of homes using millions of gallons of water probably on a yearly basis. Is there ever a point that you see, and sorry, I'll get to you momentarily, do you see at any point it ever being severe enough to stop new home development? What does that look like if it exists through Austin Water?
It is difficult for us to predict every possible future, but we have tried. And we have run millions of possible future scenarios and built up our portfolio of strategies in order to prevent that kind of catastrophic situation.
And just like Shay was talking about, you know, our goal is to future-proof new development. So in addition to new large developments having to do things like on-site reuse or to connect to our purple pipe system and reduce their overall potable water use, we're requiring that every new development submitting a site plan within the city of Austin has to submit a water budget, a water benchmarking calculator, so that we can estimate how much water they will use and what are the opportunities for further conservation, reuse, and efficiency. That's one of the ways that we make sure not only that we set up that development for success and be a part of the conservation efforts of the overall city of Austin, but also that we're gathering data and information about how much water each type of development should use in the future. And then we pair that with all of the data and information we're getting from our smart meters, our communications and outreach to customers, our incentives and rebates and other tools, and we create this cycle of success for all of our customers.
And I would say for viewers that get their water from Austin Water is doing the best job we could possibly ever ask. But we have Spicewood, we have Lago Vista, we have Lakeway, we have people up further in Lake Travis that are also putting in hundreds of homes at a time, even thousands of homes. We've got new golf courses going up in Spicewood. They will run out of water first. They are not under the benefit of Austin Water and how it's being managed. So we really have to continue to look at our lake levels as we keep saying yes. We have to recognize that our lakes can only produce, and they have lower intakes. For Spicewood to get to a lower intake into Lake Travis, it's near impossible. So we're gonna have a Spicewood beach potentially all over again. If you remember during the drought of record, they closed the school. They had to start trucking water out there. We don't want that to happen again.
Want to hear from our lawmakers on this.
Yeah, you know, I really appreciate the comments about what this means out in the hill country, because while I do think, you know, it's pretty unlikely that City of Austin would face having to say to new homes, that does feel like a very real possibility in the hill country right now. But one of the reasons these developments keep getting approved, even when it looks like there might not be water, is because there's no single mind out in these areas who says whether or not there's enough water. What there is there's a developer going, City of Austin, do you have water? City of Buda, how about you? Private water supplier over there, do you have water? They're going out and like taking bids from multiple possible providers. They're looking at wells, and basically they get a yes from one person, and that development gets approved. And so one of the challenges I'm concerned about is at what point do we get some sort of regional intelligent thinking about where do we have the resources and what do we need to do to protect them. And having this very divided governance out in these areas is one of our challenges, both to make sure we have adequate conservation strategies set up, but also to know when we're approving development we can support long term.
Senate Bill 7, the heart of it is creating a coordinated oversight approach to developing all of the supplies with the best use of taxpayers' dollars. We've got this patchwork, and we've created these silos of water and non-silos of water and moving water out of the water places. So Senate Bill 7, over its time, will create a hub and spoke environment where large opportunities for cities to anchor distribution into the other areas with water and plants and sewer and water treatments. It's going to take a little time, but we have just allowed communities to do what they had to do to survive for so long. To your point, we don't really know where we're at on what our water supply looks like, what's depleting, and honestly, it's short-term thinking, and we forced that as a state. It was always a local issue to find it and a local issue to develop it. Senate Bill 7 puts all of that on a map and says, you need water, and there's this one resource here. How do we burst, put in a new supply to make sure everybody's met one time for the long haul? So that's kind of a big feature of 7 that's not really easy to put on paper, but over time it's going to instill and force that coordinated water approach.
We've had a great conversation. We are running out of time, but we want to go down the line and get some final thoughts. We've obviously just scratched the surface of this issue. There's so much to discuss.
Talk for days.
We could.
Just a drop in the bucket.
So let's start with Austin Water. Drop in the bucket, yeah.
Well, I think that we recognize that it's going to take a lot of work and it's going to take a lot of collaboration between partners and between neighbors and between Texans to make sure that we're securing a sustainable water future for all of our communities, and we're committed to doing that.
I would echo that and say these are all shared resources, and so collaboration is the key, and money. You know, figuring out how to fund these really important investments, and then bringing along all of our everyone who lives in Texas along with us to help make good choices about how we steward these shared resources.
Shannon, final thoughts?
Very well said. Conservation is going to have an add-on to that we have to. Senate Bill 7 is going to be wonderful when it passes. We're going to say it's going to pass. And we need to buy time. We need to conserve. We need to make sure that everybody's faucets are coming on until we get new water supply.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of serious challenges in the state with respect to water, but exciting solutions, right? With the leadership that the legislature has displayed and their focus on this effort, the resources are going to be made available. We've talked about a lot of the tools that are in the hypothetical toolbox, a lot of leadership, expertise, and experience on this panel. I'm excited to face those challenges. So I know the Texas Water Development Board is looking forward to meeting those needs.
I think education is really important, so thank you for doing this episode. And I was talking to a woman the other day who said, well, we were talking about water and people watering their yards and how that's 70% of what a city, where it goes. And she said, well, I'm good because I'm on a well. So we have to keep educating people.
Yeah, especially when the aquifers are starting to really drop. Jacob's Well hasn't been swimmable in a very long time as a part of this population boom. So, yeah, well said. Education is going to be very important. Senator.
We do big things in Texas. This is the next big thing we've got to get done. And I'm excited about the prospects of my grandkids being able to live where they live and have water to drink. I won't drink a glass of water probably from what I'm doing today or what the legislature's doing today. But the good news is we're here now, and we know it, so we're going to get it done.
I would echo Senator Perry's thoughts, but also add that growth is a challenge, but it's also an opportunity, and we need to be using every tool in the toolbox to make sure that everything we're building in this fast-growing region is using our water as efficiently as possible.
Well said. Thanks to each of you for joining us tonight. Unfortunately, we do have to end the conversation there. I will say it again, we could talk about this for days. The conversation could obviously continue anywhere on our social media and on many of your communication avenues as well. I know you hear from many of your constituents. I know you hear from many of your customers as well on just how serious of an issue this is. So again, I want to thank you all for your time, for joining us this evening. A great conversation talking about this important topic that impacts us all. I am meteorologist Avery Tomasco.
And I'm John Carlos Estrada. You've been watching CBS Austin. Where is Our Water? A town hall.